Hello, everyone. Welcome to another preview of our round 11 matchup with the Sydney Swans. Now, I've gone outside of Australia for my preview with an opposition fan, and I have got Coach Hess with me. Now, Coach Hess is the head coach of the Des Moines Roosters Aussie Rules football team. He is also the host of the Donny's Disposal podcast. You may have heard me talk on this podcast a few weeks ago. Coach, hello and welcome.
How are we doing, Terry? Isn't this an interesting time for both of our clubs? Both of our clubs walk into this game in almost mirror imaging fashion when it comes to confidence in the fan bases. I don't know about you.
Oh, that's an interesting notion for a Carlton fan. The confidence is dented, but I think anytime we're talking to an opposition fan for an upcoming game, we find a little something. You know, we don't want to be pushed around too much. But we'll get to that. I know your story. I know how we've met, but for those in the Blue Abroad audience, like, you're from the US. What's the story? How'd you become a Swans fan?
Oh, I know I hopped on here last year and it was absolutely a blast. So the people that have seen me, it's great to be back. I love some of the comments on the YouTube videos. You guys are absolutely awesome. I love what you do for Blue Abroad. When it comes to how I got into footy, it's plain and simply my father was a sports head, and we had a cable channel over here in the States called Fox Sports World. And it had rugby, it had cricket, and it had Aussie Rules. And I got into it as a kid. It was this fascinatingly different sport that was different than anything I had ever seen. And then the channel unfortunately went defunct a couple of years later. I went through high school, played some athletics, but had not had any contact with Aussie Rules at all. And then bang, in 2009, I was working as part-time job in an Australian, came into my job looking for parts, and conveniently we started talking rugby. And then all of a sudden he pops up and goes, "Hey, you ever heard of Australian rules football?" And I go, "Yeah, I actually have." He goes, "How'd you like to play for a team we have here in town?" And jaw hit the floor. I was one of the few people that he had talked to that knew what he was talking about as he was discussing it. And I got into it, and I've caught the footy bug ever since. And as you can see, Terry said, I now do a podcast called Donny's Disposals, connected. Was formerly Fourth and Long. Our producer is a little busy, so he's basically bequeathed the channel to me, and I do a little bit of everything: AFL, AFLW, and now I cover state leagues with VFL, Sandful, and Waffle.
Love it, mate. Love to hear it. Love to hear that you are an ambassador for the game in the content creator space. Now that the niceties are out, I want to talk about the Swans, mate. This is an important game on Friday night for both clubs, I think. What is the Sydney story? Because I feel like after the Geelong loss, something just doesn't feel Sydney.
Oh boy. If I could tell you, I would have relayed it to the Sydney Swans, because I really don't know. It has been a nightmare, probably 6 weeks. We got lucky against Richmond in gather round, and it has literally went to hell in a handbasket since. It's injury, it's lack of form, it's mental errors on the field that were just not there last year when the Swans went on their nice little run to get to a grand final. The wheels are a little off kilter. Nothing is fitting just right, and it doesn't help that, like I said, half our starting back line is sitting on the injured reserve with both McCartans and Dane Rampy. Two of our regularly, what we would consider our starting full forward and starting center half forward, and Logan McDonald and Joel Armati are also out. And then just significant injury after significant injury. Our ruck stock is basically, we're razor thin at this point. So there's not a lot of confidence in Swansland, especially when you beat North Melbourne on what many people would say is a technical rule that just happened to float your way.
It was brutal.
Imagine watching it live. Oh boy.
Listen, you'll take the 4 points where you can get them. The little positive voice in the back of my head tells me that, you got the luck last week. You're due for a loss now because you I wouldn't say you didn't deserve the win, but there were 4 quarters that were played.
Well, let me stop you there, Terry. I'll say it. North should have won that game.
Oh wow!
I'll say it. I am unabashed when I say it. North should have won that game. I've not done our podcast yet. In fact, I'm probably going to do it once we're done chatting here in just a little bit. But I'm honest. I'm honest with a lot of people. North should have won that game. We got, like I said, we won the game on a technicality. Were we in it? Yes. Did we give ourselves did the Swans give themselves a chance to win because it was under a goal when the technicality happened? Yes. But in all if that doesn't happen, if that absolute blunder doesn't happen, they kick it down the line, probably burn 30 seconds to 45 seconds, and North probably wins it by the margin that they would have. I will straight up admit it. The Swans got lucky. That North should have won that game.
Wow. Okay. So I know that we spoke recently about the Blues. That was a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
What is your take on the Blues?
They're a team that honestly, I've said it numerous times in the podcast. I look at their list and I go, what is broken? Like last year, they were so good. They were the team that just I kept seeing all this and I was thinking they're going to make finals. They're going to make finals. And it just it went off the ropes at the wrong time of the year, late in the year. And if there was one team that deserved to be in other than the Bulldogs, it would have been you guys, honestly. And this year, just I don't know if whatever Voss did in the offseason just threw these guys off, or just the injury bug that has kind of run through your team has just kind of the cohesion hasn't worked. But you've become a team that everybody was scared of because they were bulls in the middle. They would always win the ball. And then you have your two-headed monster up front with Curnow and Mackay that everybody's terrified because nobody has two big talls, which means one of those two is going to get open on every single possession. And it's just not happening. You're not winning out of the middle, which then means Curnow and Mackay are great, but only when they're getting the ball. And if they're having to help your defense by getting marks down the wing, well, they only have each other to kick to. And I mean, you can't run 100 meters and still be accurate. Mackay's issues kicking straight at times hasn't helped you. Curnow's been solid. I mean, there's no other way to say it. But I've just been frustrated with a team that has a lot of really good users, and Sod and Doherty and Newman and Walsh and Cripps. It's just the ball use has just been not effective, or has been utterly confusing, shall I say, just a little bit. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I resonate with a lot of what you're saying. I mean, at this point with Carlton, we've really brought up every possible theory of what it could be.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess now that I'm talking to you, one thing that comes to mind is the way it ended last year. Obviously, you guys made the grand final and it ended the way it did. The way our season ended last year was maybe, what's the scale of how brutal it was? A 100-point loss in a grand final, or a 1-point loss, or, just before the season ends. So I'm curious, are we feeling, both of us, are both our teams feeling the effects of a brutal ending, and have they mentally recovered?
It's a little bit of, I think it's a little bit of that, and especially because it was heart-wrenching for Carlton, both on the players and even the supporter base, because I mean, you were in the 8 all year long, except for the 3 seconds that Collingwood took the lead at the end of the game. That's literally the statistical honest answer. You were in the 8 until 3 seconds left in the game. That was how nuts that your ending was. When it comes to the Swans, I agree there's some scars, because it just seems like they get into a game where they get down a little bit and then everything just falls apart, which is a little like what happened in the grand final. The first 10 minutes happened, and then it was like we were chooks with our heads cut off. We had no idea what to do. We couldn't really fix the problem. And when you're facing a red-hot Geelong team that's absolutely lethal and brutally vicious and unmerciful, it's going to leave a scar. But then with the Swans, a little bit is, you look at their injury list, a lot of their grand final team are not on the park right now. You got a lot of youngsters that are trying to fill. We have no key defender. If you really look at it, Nick Blakey has tried to be a key defender, and the guy's 175 pounds soaking wet. and that's with an anvil in his pocket. That's the issue that you run with Blakey. There is no good matchup. You put him on Mackay, Mackay's going to power him. You put him on Curnow is strong enough to hold him off and make the mark. Blakey may be a little faster than them, but is he going to be able to get in front of them to intercept mark all the time? I'm not going to hold my fingers. Francis, on the other hand, has got some big body, but he's been playing forward most of the time in the VFL because we weren't expecting Patty, Tommy McCartan, and Dane Rampy all to go down within the span of 3 weeks.
Interesting. Wow. I've been watching the Swans, but I haven't really. This is why I do the opposition previews, because it gives me a better insight into what's the context behind some of these teams. So, what's going to happen on Friday night at the SCG?
Oh, there's always two parts of me. There's always the I can be a one-eyed Swans fan when I want to, and I can be Coach Donnie, my AFL podcasting host. And if I look at it, my biggest fear for the Swans, and this is why I have in my tippings tipped Carlton, is unless Tom Hickey is back, I worry that Stretch McAndrews is going to be dominated by Pitnet, which is then going to give Walsh, Cripps, Hayward, Kennedy, and your midfield a heyday when it comes to ruck taps. And then Charlie Curnow and Mackay are absolutely going to have a field day. They're going to kick 15 between them, and it's going to be a long, long night at the SCG. Now, somehow, if Hickey does come back from his concussion protocol miss, which is the reason he missed last week, can he at least even out the ruck contest to the point where maybe Warner, Rampy, and Rowbottom can at least get some of the footy enough to kind of keep the ball from going forward? Because, I mean, there is no good matchup. Swans D6 versus Carlton forward 6 when it comes to Mackay and Curnow. And we can't double and triple team because then guys like Motlop can get free. So the Swans' best defense in this situation may be ball retention. You could see the Swans go into kick mark, just to kind of make Carlton defend the ground. Because if they don't, it could be a long, long night. As much as I love my Swans, I'm really worried this is a bad matchup. This is a perfect time for Carlton to get Sydney because they still don't have they don't have a big defender really after Aaron Francis to guard either of the two monsters in Mackay and Curnow.
Interesting. If this game was happening 5 to 6 weeks ago, I would be very confident. But after the last 5 to 6 weeks have played out, I don't trust my team anymore. I hope that we will win on Friday. The arguments that you've just presented to me make sense as to why we would win the game on Friday. But those arguments have also been in place for the entirety of the year. I mistakenly thought that at the way it all ended last year, with another preseason with Voss, another layer of experience with the game plan and with each other, that we would be better. Maybe not necessarily in the first month, but definitely in the second and third month of the season. So I want to believe, I do believe that we can win the game, but I don't trust my belief because my belief gets me in trouble. It lets me down. And every week I'm sitting here doing some soul searching, trying to find a meaning to life because the boys just, for whatever reason, cannot repay the faith and be reliable at the moment.
And I understand that, and I think the one thing you're gonna notice on both fan bases is both fan bases are very pessimistic. I've listened to a few of the Swans podcasts, and there's not a ton of confidence going into this game. Now, some people are confident because they're one-eyed Swan fans. They're always going to tip the Swans. They're always going to be super confident. But the ones that are a little more neutral or a little less, full-fledged Swans can do no wrong type of fans, which, I think every fan base has the one-eyed fan that every free kick should be their team's, all that. There are some people that there's genuine worry because we look at the matchups and go, this does not breed a lot of confidence because of this, and this. And like I said, I try to be as neutral as I can when it comes to my tips, just because sometimes when you tip with your heart, sometimes it hurts you a little bit because you tip games that you probably know should go the other way. So I'm going to tip Carlton. I think this is still close. I think your deficiencies and Sydney's deficiencies will make for quite an interesting game. I still think it'll be close. Like, I think this is mid fourth quarter. It's no more than 10 at the max, because I don't think either team right now has the killer instinct to put the other away if they do get a big lead. Like, that's been the struggle for both teams. So this could be one of those. It could come down to who makes the least amount of mistakes in this game, even into the fourth quarter.
Okay. So let's have a final prediction and a storyline from the game from you. And I'll give you one as well.
Carlton by 8. Swans miseries continue.
Okay. I will go Carlton by 26, but I'm with you. I think it will be close for the majority of the game. And I hope we'll break through. And I think Charlie will kick 7 goals.
Definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
Definitely a possibility. Like I said, I would love to have the storyline be Buddy goes berserk and kicks 6, but I don't know if he's going to get the supply. Like I said, the ruck battle is going to make or break this game. Whatever team is winning the majority out of the center, I think the center clearances, I think, is going to be the make or break it stat of this game.
Well, the other stat that works in your favor is that I have never been to an interstate win in my life. I've been to a few interstate games, all losses. So just putting that out there.
The proverbial touchwood moment.
Yes, sir. All right. Coach Hess, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for everything you do for the AFL community. I don't know if you realize it, but it's a very important role that you play. You know, you did not grow up with this game. You know, you're not living in Australia where it's or in Melbourne where it's in our faces. So thank you very much for helping grow the game around the world. It's important. And we look forward to having you on again.
No problem. I'll try my best. And hey, to all the Blue Abroad, I love what you guys are doing. Keep up the great work. I know you're only Carlton, but I still keep an eye on it. Love the work that you guys are doing. Keep up the great work.
Love it. All right. You can catch Donnie's Disposal in the description. I'll put the link in there. Check him out. Give him a follow. Give him a subscribe. And we'll go from there. See you, everybody.